What's up, YouTube? Welcome to the Credit Plug channel. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button as well as smash the like button. So in today's video, we have a very special review introducing Credit Plug funding. Yes, that's right. You heard that correctly. We are now offering business funding, business financing for all different types of small businesses. So whether you're into manufacturing, if you have a trucking business, a nail salon, beauty supply shop, trucking, transportation, whatever the case may be, we have options for you. So whether you're looking for a business line of credit, a business loan, equipment financing, auto vehicle financing, we have it all. So the application process is very straightforward. You can fill out this very simple application, or if you want to speak to a Credit Plug advisor today, it's 844-488-PLUG. Again, that's 844-488-PLUG. You can speak to an advisor. And now one of the great things about our new funding program is that there's absolutely no minimum FICO score. So whether you have a 500 credit score or 850 credit score, you're definitely eligible. And we also look at other criteria as well, which I'll go into a second. But this gives you same day funding, 10,000 all the way up to 5 million, terms from 6 months all the way out to 10 years. Now, again, in terms of the different industries, we're wide open. So a lot of other lenders have very restrictive categories in terms of the SIC codes or the business types. We work with them all. Now, just from this list, as you can see, whether you're in the adult industry, whether you're in apparel, so if you have an e-commerce business, if you're into automotive, transportation, nightclubs, beauty and nail salons, call centers, even if you're into the sports industry, cannabis industry, car rental. So I know a lot of you, are probably into the Turo or hire car, contractors, electricians. I mean, we work with them all different shapes and sizes. So this is definitely the place to come to if you're looking for business funding. And again, doesn't matter what industry you're in, we have options for you. So this form is very easy. You could fill this out. Now, and again, like I said, you also call 844-488-PLUG, but the application process is very straightforward. There's very minimal documentation. Now, I know a lot of other lenders, they're requiring a lot of information. With our new Credit Plug funding program, very little documentations. The most you're probably going to have to put in is like your bank statements. And then in certain situations, depending on what types of lenders that you might qualify for on the back end, you might have to submit a little bit more, but that's usually going to be for higher amounts. We're talking about hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars in terms of a loan. So in those situations, there's just a little bit more due diligence. But for most small businesses, it's going to be very minimal documentation. So all you got to do is submit this form right here. And again, the application is very simple. It's just a 15-second application, no minimum FICO. So even if you have bad credit, I know that's a huge challenge for a lot of small business owners. You might have a viable business, you might have some income coming in, but there might be something on your personal credit that's preventing you from going to the major banks. With the Credit Plug funding program, even if you have bad credit, we have options for you. So this is one of the best funding programs out there. You can get matched with large funding amounts. So again, we have funding that goes as high as 5 million, and then the minimum amount is 10,000. So if you're looking for something less than 10,000, then this really isn't going to be for you. So if you do apply, just remember that you probably want to request 10,000 or more because that's sort of the sweet spot. But again, amounts as high as $5 million in same day funding, right? So you can get underwritten in just a couple of hours and they get the funds in your account so you can use to grow and scale and operate your business. So this is one of the best funding programs out there. Now, in order to qualify, you do have to be in business for at least 3 months. So that's the minimum requirement. And we're looking at about 15,000 in monthly gross sales. So that's 15,000 a month or 180,000 in annual gross sales. Now, I'll tell you this. So, this is just, kind of like a baseline, right? But depending on the funding program, again, there could be some flexibility with the monthly gross sales. So it's not the end all be all. If you're not making $15,000 per month, you can apply and we can see if there's, any wiggle room in terms of some of the different funding programs. But, we just set this out as the minimum, although in certain situations, let's say you might fall a little bit below that, slightly below that, not too far below, right? If you're only bringing in $1,000 per month or 2,000, that's definitely not going to cut it. But let's say, you're bringing in 13,000, 14,500, something like that. There might be some wiggle room in those situations. And again, there's no minimum FICO score. So financing options for all credit profiles, no minimum FICO score. And again, it's just a soft inquiry to begin. Once you actually see what options you qualify for, then it may or it may not be a hard pull. So it's all going to, vary, but I would just go in and expecting if you do wind up proceeding with a particular loan option, then I would just anticipate it being a hard pull, but you will be notified beforehand if it is going to be a hard pull. So we lay all that information out to you so you know exactly what to expect. All right, so I wanted to go over some of the frequently asked questions. So how to get a small business loan. Now, to apply for the Credit Plug funding program, there's no requirements in order to apply, but you do have to meet the minimum standards set by specific lenders, and each lender is going to have slightly different underwriting criteria. That's why we match you with several different options to see which one will be a best fit for how you plan on using the funds. Now, most of the lenders are going to be focusing on the time in business, right? So minimum 3 months time in business. And then also your personal credit rating. So lenders will go as far as analyzing your personal credit rating. So your credit score is usually going to set the interest rate and the amount. So individual credit worthiness is enough for them to know your payment reliability. To build your credit rating is important to understand your utilization. So you want to make sure that your utilization is below 30%. And to be honest with you, typically you want to have even lower, but 30% is the minimum threshold. Anything over 30% is actually going to hurt you in terms of your credit score. Now, aside from the utilization, you also want to make sure that you have strong credit history with on-time payments. That's one of the most important things. You also want to understand the lender's requirements in terms of the minimums, right? So in general, small business loans from banks typically are going to want to see a minimum of a 640 credit score. However, to get the best rates, you probably want to make sure that your credit score is at least 700 or above. Now, to get the best rates and get the highest amounts, you're going to need the highest credit score. But at a baseline, a 640 is probably usually going to be the minimum. Now, some lenders might even go lower than that, but you have to also keep in mind that, let's say if you have a lower credit score, then you might want to have a stronger business income, and vice versa. Let's say you don't have as much cash flow in the business, you might want to have a higher credit score to sort of offset that. But let's say if you have, good credit and good cash flow, you're going to have more options available. If you have a lower credit score and very low income coming in, then it's going to be harder for you to get qualified. So just because you may have a low credit score, that doesn't disqualify you from getting a loan. Now, after determining whether or not you qualify, you do want to gather some of your information, like your EIN, your SS4 form from the IRS. You also want to make sure that you have your articles of organization. That's very important. And in some cases, you may need an operating agreement. Now, these are just basic documentation that you need regardless of where you're applying for. This is just something that you should always have handy as a business owner. And in rare situations with some of the lenders that we work with, they may ask for business tax returns. They may ask for bank statements. Bank statements is usually going to be a requirement, but tax returns, it's all going to vary. Typically higher loan amounts, they're just going to want to do some additional due diligence. Now, in terms of the types of small business financing that we provide, you can get a business line of credit. So this is going to be a revolving line of credit where you draw down on it. You're only paying interest once you actually use it. And then when you do repay it, the line of credit is replenished. So this is a revolving type of account. You also get access to invoice financing. We also work with working capital loans. Equipment financing, this is another very good option. And equipment financing, I would say, is going to be probably the easiest because it's collateralized and the rates are going to be pretty low because, again, the equipment is going to serve as collateral, and typically the credit score requirements are going to be slightly lower. There's also term loans and then SBA small business loans. Now, we're not talking about EIDL or PPP. We're talking about 7A. We're talking about 504. So typically these types of loans are going to require the most due diligence. So typically you're going to have to provide financials. You're going to have to provide tax returns. You're going to have to, do personal credit, business credit. So the SBA loans are probably going to be the best in terms of the interest rates and the loan amounts. But the trade-off is that you're going to have to provide more documentation. But with some of these other types, for example, invoice financing or working capital equipment financing, loans that are somewhat collateralized, then the requirements are going to be slightly lower. So just understand that the business lines of credit and the SBA loans are usually going to have the higher requirements. Equipment financing, invoice financing, anything where there's collateral is going to be slightly less. So now, if anyone's interested in applying for getting business funding to help grow your business in 2022, all you got to do is fill out this form, get funding now. After completing the simple form, we'll pair you with your dedicated credit plug advisor to choose the best financing options for your business.